lot of effort. I've never seen a patient do this before. My name is Leon. I'm a physiotherapist, and today we'll be analysing Neymar's recent Instagram video where he showcases some of his rehab following his recent knee surgery. Hello, welcome to Jiu-Jitsu Physio, a channel dedicated towards simplifying the science behind sports and injury rehab, health and longevity. Thank you for clicking on this video today. It would mean the absolute world to us if you can continue supporting this channel by clicking like and subscribe so that we can continue providing you with ongoing free content. So before we actually look and deep dive into Neymar's recent Instagram video, let's recap what actually happened leading up towards his surgery. So as many of you would know, Neymar recently suffered an ACL and meniscus tear following a world qualifying match against Uruguay. Although I could break down the position where Neymar injured his knee, Byron Sutterer, a medical doctor and YouTuber, does a great job at breaking this down frame by frame exactly how this injury occurred. I'll be linking his video in the description below, and I highly recommend his channel for all things sports and injury management. So a brief overview about Neymar's surgery. He would have underwent a procedure called an ACL reconstruction or a knee reconstruction. And what happens is that ruptured or injured ACL is replaced by a graft. Typically, this is taken from the semimembranosus, which is a muscle found in the hamstring complex. Now, once this graft replaces the ruptured ACL, it undergoes a process called ligamentization, where over a period of 9 to 12 months, that graft undergoes a process called remodeling and eventually becomes the ligament. So after Neymar underwent his knee surgery, he uploaded a video showcasing some of the behind the scenes footage of his rehab and recovery. And as some of you would have seen already, the video is highly edited and emotionally dramatized with the background music, footage of Neymar screaming in pain. And to be quite frank, given my experience with patients following an ACL surgery, it is quite an emotional and arduous process. You know, patients are well aware that it's a 9 to 12, and for some people, even longer process for them to get back to baseline again. And during those 9 to 12 months, it isn't just waiting around, it's intensive rehabilitation throughout that journey. You know, you've got that early phase where we focus on trying to reduce that inflammation, swelling, improve range of motion, maximize quad activation, all the way towards the end of recovery where we're working on strengthening the muscle around the knee, balance, increasing agility, working on more sports-specific functional exercises. And with my own experiences helping patients recover from the ACL injury, we'll be reacting to the video right now to see what's going on, and I'll try and explain simply what is going on from a rehab and physio point of view. So right on the get-go, what we see is that Neymar's leg is put into a contraption. That contraption is called a CPM, or continuous passive motion machine. What it essentially does is that it continues bringing the leg inwards and outwards, so bending and straightening the knee. And the machine can actually be preset in terms of what range you want to take that patient. So, for example, we can set 90 degrees and 0 degrees. And so that machine will continuously take that patient's knee to 9 degrees and slowly back to 0 degrees, or fully extend and straight. Typically, we don't really see this being used quite often after an ACL surgery. In fact, when I was working in the hospitals, they were mainly reserved for patients who had a really stiff knee after a knee replacement. And even then, it'd only be a handful of patients at a time. And sometimes on the ward, we wouldn't even use it. Now, to be honest, it is not a very pleasant experience having a knee taken through range, especially when it's sore and inflamed right after surgery. In saying that, I've never really seen anyone react like that to the CPM before, but I'm sure it's definitely not a pleasant experience by any means. So if you're a patient watching this video, or somebody about to go under ACL surgery, or if they've already had ACL surgery, you don't need a CPM. CPM is a type of device really used early on in the rehabilitation journey, particularly for helping you restore your knees range of motion, mobility. Some studies have suggested that it may help with swelling as well, but that's dubious at best. Now, these world-class athletes have access to expensive bits of technology, which the ordinary person really doesn't need to use. A CPM machine isn't going to make a huge impact on your rehabilitation. And in fact, you can actually recreate the purpose of this machine by doing an assisted hill slide with a towel instead. Even when you look at the research and literature, there doesn't seem to be any strong evidence supporting any additional benefit using CPM after an ACL surgery or reconstruction. So if we look at this systematic review, its conclusion is a clinical benefit of post-operative CPM after an ACL reconstruction was not identified in this review. Whilst our systematic review identified a number of studies that suggest CPM may be associated with lower usage of pain medication in hospitalized patients, this cannot be confirmed without further investigation with standardized CPM protocols in larger sample sizes. Routine CPM use after ACL was not supported in this systematic review. So whilst there may be some benefits in helping relieve pain, there is no conclusive evidence to recommend a CPM after an ACL reco. So what we can see here, there's some white patches that are sitting on Neymar's leg. And what those white pads are actually gel pads that are connected to a device through these wires, as you can see here. And that device is an EMS machine, or electric muscle stimulation machine. And what this does, it helps contract and relax the muscle that's being applied to without the voluntary control of the individual. In this case, they are trying to work on increasing the muscle activity of the quad muscle, which is responsible for extending the leg and stabilizing the knee. So the purpose of this is to make sure that quad is activating and engaging. After a major knee surgery, one of the most common things that we see is the quads lag, so that the signal towards the quad muscle to extend and move the knee is inhibited. So very early on, what we do see, some patients find it difficult to extend that knee because the quad muscles are essentially asleep. Over time, the majority of these patients regain quad control, so they're able to extend the knee and move the knee accordingly through exercises like static quads, quads over fulcrum, and a straight leg raise. Now, similar to the CPM, there still isn't a great deal of evidence to support the use of EMS machines post-surgically after ACL reco. Now, one randomized controlled trial that I looked into was looking at whether or not EMS was effective at quads activity after a total knee replacement, which is very different from an ACL reco. But what they did find was that an early addition of NMES, or neuromuscular electrical stimulation, effectively attenuated the loss of quadricep muscle strength and improved functional performance following TKA. The effects were most pronounced and clinically meaningful within the first month after surgery, but persisted through 1 year after surgery. So what this essentially means was that people were able to regain their quads strength quicker, and that improvement was very long lasting, up to a year. In another study looking into EMS for patients recovering after Achilles tendon surgery, they found that no statistically significant difference was found between active NMES and sham or control treated patients. So at this stage, EMS, once again, is a very expensive machine. It is not essential for those who have had an ACL repair. It might help in the early stages to try and get some of that quads activity back. But as long as you're doing your exercise and your patient, the vast majority of patients will get that back. So once again, this is a device really for people who have a bit of coin to splurge, or if you're a world-class athlete, you have access to these bits of technology and equipment. But really, to be quite frank, you do not need an EMS for recovery from an ACL reco at all. Once again, I find them quite cumbersome to use. Gel pads do lose their stickiness, so after a set period of time, they're quite difficult to use. And for some people, it's not even safe to use. If you've got a pacemaker, for example, it might disrupt that device, which is critically keeping you alive. So once again, this is a product of a world-class athlete having access towards all the technology and devices available without really significantly impacting their long-term recovery. A lot of effort. I've never seen a patient do this before. Yeah, that's a lot of grunting and effort. I've never seen a patient do that before myself. But what Neymar is doing here is what we call a straight leg raise, the ability to lift your leg fully extended up in the air. And what this exercise is working on is trying to regain the activity in the quads again. So the ability to straighten the knee is the function of the quads. This must be very early on in his rehab, because achieving a straight leg raise is one of the milestones that I use to make sure that the patient is using the quads effectively. So as you can see, Neymar's finding it very hard to actually do that movement himself, which leads me to believe he's in the early stages of his rehab and recovery. He's yet to regain full function of his quad muscle. You can see that the therapist there is helping him assist that movement upwards, which means that he is not voluntarily engaging his quads enough to do it himself. So this is still very early on in the process. You can see the crutches in the background. He's still using them to reduce the weight bearing through the knee. So overall, this is, a glimpse into what early ACL rehab is like. And although a little bit dramatized and probably a bit of acting for the cameras, it is a grueling and relentless rehab for the 9 to 12 months before you return to sport. And, for these athletes who make a living and make a livelihood of playing sports, it can be very psychologically and physically challenging task ahead. Now, I guess the main takeaways from this video is, world-class athletes have access to all these bits of technology and devices to help with the recovery, as well as world-class medical support and care. For us regular folk who may or may not be undergoing, an ACL reco, these bits of technology are more of a nice to have rather than essential. Now, if you yourself had an ACL rupture and looking for either some pre-operative or post-operative rehabilitation and care, please click the link in the description below. It'll take you to my website where you can book in with one of our therapists and myself to help facilitate that recovery process for you. So that's it for today. It's great seeing a snapshot into the early stages of recovery after an ACL reco. For an athlete, ACL injuries are one of the most impactful injuries that you can experience, ranging from undergoing the procedure to months and months of recovery and rehabilitation before you can get back onto the field or go back to your sport again. And if there are any questions about ACL rehab and recovery, please put them in the comment section below. I'll do my best to get back to you. In the meantime, take care, and we'll see you in our next video.